Hi, this is Rick Harsh, and I'm here today to talk about submissions, particularly those by writers who have never been published. Uh, I don't know of any more uh, hopeless feeling there is than being an unpublished writer submitting a manuscript to an agent, which is something that rarely succeeds these days, and worse yet, submitting to a press, even mine. Um, we actually technically don't take submissions, but when it came to me having to write about how we don't take submissions, I kind of let it be known that we do kind of take submissions. You know that if they is there something weird on my lip? Well, there probably is. Maybe my lip is just weird. So anyway, uh, I'm distracted by my lip. Um, is it a hair? It's not one of those little spit things. I had a tennis coach who always had one. You know, little ball of spit. You know, a little white ball. And whenever he talked to us, it'd be moving around his mouth while he talked, and you know, uh, I liked him. He was a nice guy. I tried to listen, but you get mesmerized by one of those things. I don't want that to happen here, but if it does, it does. Anyway, the submission policy that I wrote up was one that said more or less, we don't take submissions, but you know, if you can manage, we will. Something like that. I don't know. I'm not going to spend a lot of my life reading submissions. I don't like to. I like to read like a few paragraphs or at most a sentence. You know, we've been very lucky that way too. I read Robert Stickley's Bended Circuity. I don't remember specifically um, how he ended up sending it to me, but I think I might have read one or two sentences and said, "Well, this guy can write. I'll take it." And I believe that's how it went. I didn't read the whole thing until after we published it. I didn't read much at all until after we published it. And of course, it's our second best-selling book, and we're very close to the 500th copy sold, and that's a lot for us. Very few sell 100, and so there's one reason not to submit to Corona Samizdat. We don't sell many books, but if we do take your book, it's going to look good in most cases. I mean, there are some that are not prize winners, but you know, there are really some great ones. I will again show a microline book. Here you go. You got the David Vardaman's latest, Feast of the Assumption, a real riotous read, and classic Vardaman, although with a bit of camp, I think he would admit. And I think he actually used the word camp before I thought of it. But, you know, lovely books, these microlines. And you see, I'm holding up this one here, America and the Cult of the Cactus Boots, a diagnostic. This one was never actually submitted. Um, the myth perpetrated by the author Philip Friedenberg was that he said, you know, maybe I'll write a book about a guy who's waiting for a book, and he had just ordered my book, The Manifold Destiny of Eddie Vegas, and I said, well, if you write it, I'll publish it, and that was that. I don't know if that's exactly how it went. He gives me more credit than I deserve, um, but you know, if that's how it went, it would have been because um, by talking to him briefly, I could tell that this was a guy who was a mad genius. And, I must have figured, well, if he actually does write the book, it's going to be a mad genius book. And it is a mad genius book. And it really exploded. Now, this is the benefit of being published by us is you'll have a published book. Wait, we won't use that as an example. That's Chandler Broussard, but he was dead when we got his book. But let's say Vardaman. We use Vardaman as an example. We were the first to publish Vardaman, and he was in his 60s. And he had been writing pretty much his whole adult life. And I think he had a couple of plays performed. And, so that was the extent of his success. Maybe a couple of short stories were published somewhere, online magazines maybe. But, now he's an authentic published writer. And that's it. That's it for David Vardaman. The possible success that you can get, and we've only had one writer be successful in this way. That was me. That is, you publish a book from us, and it gets attention, and then it gets bought by another press, and that is something that I always hope will happen. I thought Joao Hayes would have that happen. Joao Hayes, is New York Review of Books classics material. He's perfect for them, and hasn't happened yet. He's published several books, and he's been nominated for a major prize, but he's still working instead of just writing, which is what he should be doing. I mean, a man of his talent, dedication, and well, that alone, a person like that ought to be able. He can write. I bet he could write a book a year, and unless he got it in himself to, which he might do if he was free to write as much as he wanted. He might decide, I think I'll write a magnum opus, and he would do it, and it would be great. Everything he writes is great, but it hasn't happened yet. But it almost happened with this book, so I thought I wanted to address this whole issue of submissions, because lately I've had a hard time deciding. And because we have now a long list of writers waiting, we have to sell enough books to publish the next books, and we're also introducing the microline books. And so we've had writers waiting too long. Zach is very close to being ready to in the preparation of a book of poetry by Mark Douglas. I've mentioned that before. And Randall Eldon Green has a book of short stories that are only dialogue. I just found that out. I haven't even seen him. I don't know when I accepted Randall Eldon Green's book of short stories, but I did it without reading any of them. I heard a story. I heard him read a story online somewhere, and so, I know the guy is a writer. He's a writer. He's like I would say, here we have, where's Ben? Ben! Yeah, I don't know. Here's a Ben. Ben Lieberman, whose name unfortunately didn't make it to the cover of the book by some, filthy synecdoche. What a wonderful title. It's from Samuel Beckett's first novel, which is Murphy, and it was, I don't know how I got going with him, but I was actually proofreading, maybe editing, I don't know, but mostly proofreading. And I don't think I proofread the whole book. I think I just said after a while, you know what you're doing. And it's a great book. Um, and he's working on his next book, and he's going to be writing his whole life, I hope. And maybe he'll become a household name. Probably he won't, because very few of us are. Um, this is getting close. It came really close at one point. It really exploded when it came out. Chris Villa did a pretty early, like after the book had been out 3 months or so. He did a review, and the book got a lot of attention. It sold now over 1,100 copies, and so Phil is in the royalty. He's well, okay. My book that was bought was The Manifold Destiny of Eddie Vegas, and Zero Gram Press took it. Now that's a really good press, and there's no way I was going to say no. I mean, they didn't shower me with money, but it was enough money to print several books, and so I took it. And also it was nice to have a book again published by a bigger press. Um, Steerforth Press published a bunch of mine at one point. And so what happened was we got notice from a publishing big shot, a guy named Chad Post. Remember that name? Chad Post was really excited about this book, and he worked for Dalkey Archive, which somehow became Red Vellum. Is it Red Vellum or something like that? They didn't exactly merge. There's still a Dalkey Archive, and there's a separately Red Vellum, but the funds are shared or were shared. I'm trying to remember what all Chad Post told me when I had communication with him. He was very excited about this book, and I was not excited entirely. I was very excited for Phil, because Phil, he was a big Dalkey Archive reader, and can you imagine, the publisher of your great books that you read when you were a young writer wants your book, and and I was thinking, God, I hate to lose that, but God damn, I mean, that's great for Phil. So I mean, I was excited, but a little, in a sad way. There was some melancholy, but happy for Phil, and happy that, I don't know, just happy for Phil. And so Phil got in contact with Chad Post, and one or both of us sent him a copy. He probably got 2 copies out of it, Chad Post. And he was going to check on, he's a big shot with these people at Red Vellum. I'm not sure if Red Vellum sounds right, but anyway, you know what I mean probably if you're in the know on the smaller presses, the ones that print the great stuff that others won't print. Most people, I don't know, they don't a book like this, with all kinds of intertextual shenanigans and brilliant illustrations. Let me see if I can find a favorite one. Oh, that's a great one, and it's part of the novel and part of the story of the novel. The Jeff Walton drawings. Jeff also designed the cover, and You know, there are the three of us. I'm in here too, but that's just by, well, I don't know. What I do anything for the book? Maybe inspired Phil in some way. There's Phil. There's Jeff, self-portrait. Um, so Chad Post is red hot on this book. He didn't say I promise. He just made it sound like it's really going to happen. And we waited. I don't know how long, but long enough that he should have gotten back to us. And I think both Phil and I wrote him a nice letter, like, so Chad, what do you think? I mean, you've had the book, and it's been 6 months or whatever it was, and Phil never heard back from him. I never heard back from him. So then I wrote him a letter that said, you really should be a little more forthright with your work. You don't just refuse to respond and refuse to write back when people are waiting on your every word. You know how excited writers get, Chad, when they get a good chance of writing something that's published by Black Vellum? Maybe it's Black Vellum. Black Vellum? No, that's not Black Vellum. Anyway, that might be a novel by Ansgar Allen, who is another one of those great writers. But he's doing well in Europe, so don't worry, Ansgar. I'm going to read your Plague Theater soon, if you're watching. So anyway, this book ended up staying with us. And Phil is a very un-Chad Post-like, honest man, and loyal, and I mean, it's not like he would be disloyal if he took a deal from a greater press or a bigger press, and yet now he's got another book coming out this year. And his next book, which is very exciting, I've only been able. He only sends me fragments, and that's okay. That's what he did for this book. And then when I got it, I just read it immediately. It took 5 days, and I know I need to read it again still, but I'll read the other one first. And so that one is going to be published this year. And so he's going to be a Corona Samizdat writer probably as long as we exist, and he's going to do well. It's amazing to get all these orders for this and for Abundant Circuity. Excuse me. So that's what I wanted to say about submissions. I rejected somebody recently who didn't take it all that well. And you can imagine there's a lot of ways a writer can not take it well, but this particular writer was someone who had expected more of me, and I didn't really put a lot into his book. I just I put off reading it for too long, and when I finally put time into reading it, I judged it by my own interest. And it wasn't the kind of book I like, but I had a volunteer editor read it, and he wrote a letter that was, we had no agreement on what kind of letter he should write. He wrote a letter about the book suggesting we don't take it. We turned it down. He wrote it to this guy through me. I had to give it to the guy, and I finally I thought, well, what if I'm wrong? I mean, I'm sure I'm wrong a lot, and I've because of the way I go about this, you'd think I'd be wrong more on the side of publishing something that really isn't so good, but that really hasn't been a problem. The problem is the one that you never you might never find out about. I turned down someone who just is never heard from again, or I never hear from him again. And I was just haunted by this guy's uh, response. Um, I don't know how to characterize his response other than, something to the effect of, I really thought, you know, this was something we were doing together, and, you know, uh, and it wasn't exactly, we weren't seeing it the same way. But the main thing is, after I saw his response to my my editor's response, I thought, well, I don't know if I feel too good about having outright rejected his book. So I wrote him and I said, well, maybe let's try something else. See if you give it to two people and have them write to me why I should buy the book. And he said he agreed to those terms. So we still might publish this guy, and I'll never disclose who it is. We have a lot of writers coming up that you may not have heard of, and it may be any one of them, but it won't be the one you think it is. Anyway, so the story of Chad Post, Chad, if you're watching this, don't be a dick. Be human. If you're writing someone, then and you give them hope, don't even if you have to change your mind, do it kindly, and do it like a human being. You're in a conversation with us. If the conversation is going to end with you saying, I've decided I don't want to push this book, or I found out that I'm not going to be able to push this book, or whatever the fuck, you know, uh, just do it. And anyway, if Chad Post decided this wasn't good enough, well, I got over 1,000 purchasers who disagree. And the world wanted this book. The world wants this book. The book that we published, that Phil Friedenberg went crazy at writing. I mean, he wrote like a madman, and it's brilliant and funny and meaningful and inspiring. So that's all I got to say today about submissions. If you got something great, send it to me. If it's not great, don't.